Good morning. Today we'll be doing our ClientTrack 15 basic user navigation training. I'm your trainer, Adam Cowing. I'm a client data consultant at Mac. Our agenda for today is to do a brief overview of ClientTrack 15, and then we'll get into demonstrating the new features and changes to the software. So a brief overview of ClientTrack 15 is it's primarily a user interface update, which means that it's changing the look and feel of ClientTrack somewhat. Navigation will be a little different, where you find things might be a little different, and it'll just look upgraded and more up to date. So that means that forms, workflows, and reports will all work the same. This isn't a content upgrade, it's a user interface update. And one last note is that the upgrade will be deployed to production on Friday, December 11th, and ClientTrack will be down for most of the day. So with that, let's get into ClientTrack 15 and see what it looks like. So today I'll be using Firefox. And you'll get to the login page the same as you always have, clienttrack.mcwmn.org. Today we'll be going into the training and testing system rather than the live database. So we'll go in here. So since this is the training and testing site, we're going to be looking at all fake made-up data. There's no real data of real clients in this environment. And we'll be logging in here. And today we'll be going into the MCW Food Shelf work group, which is kind of a generic demonstration work group, so it may look a little different from what you're used to. All right, and here is ClientTrack 15. So a couple of changes that you'll notice right away is that the tabs that you normally see across the top are gone. They've been replaced with what is called the Workspace carousel, and we'll be getting into that shortly. And you'll also notice that the menu is greatly reduced in size and is quite compact, and we'll get into how to use that in just a moment here. So to start, I'm going to go over to the client's workspace, which is replace the tabs. We'll get into detail on how to navigate that shortly. So here's the Clients tab. You'll notice the dashboard should look pretty much the same as it always have. As I said before, this is a navigation and user interface upgrade, not a content upgrade. So let's start by looking at the menus. So you see the menu is just collapsed to just one bar on the left side of the screen. The quick options that you used to have at the top of your old menu are still here. To see the full menu, we'll just click on this button up here that says Show the Menu. Underneath that, you'll see all the different menu groups that you're used to seeing. So these are kind of our generic ones at Mac. It's participant activities, information, and assessments. So all the forms and reports that you're used to, you still have access to on the menu. So if we click away from there, you'll see it collapses, and we're left with just those work group favorites is what they're called. So the advantage of having the menus this way is you have more usable space on your screen when you're working with clients or in forms, reports, and so forth. It's especially nice for folks who are on mobile devices or smaller monitors. All right, so if you are wanting to see the full menu all the time, you can pin it open with this little pin up top. And then if you click away, the menu will stay open just like it did in previous versions of ClientTrack. If you have it open for a while and you want to change that, you can just toggle it to unpinned, and then when you click away, it'll go away. One other change that's worth noting, and this was probably the change that took the most getting used to for me, is when you go to a folder, you'll just hover your mouse over it and it'll show you all the different forms and whatnot that are underneath that folder. Before in ClientTrack, you would click on the folder and that would open it. Now if you click on it, it'll actually collapse that menu. So a minor change, but one that took a little getting used to. All right. The next thing I want to show you guys is favorites. So we talked about the workgroup favorites that are always visible, even if your menu's collapsed. In addition to these workgroup favorites, you can also create user favorites. So you can have your own favorites that'll show up below these workgroup favorites that you always have access to. This is really nice because if you only had access to the workgroup favorites, you probably would end up keeping the menu open most of the time since you work with more forms more than likely than just these three. So let's say we are a food shelf worker and we do mostly family services and let's say referrals. So we'll go to participant activities, and any form that you can find on your menu groups you can turn into a favorite. So let's go to family services. And once the form's open, you'll notice there's a little star in the upper left that says add to favorites. If we click on that star, we can create a family service favorite. You can change the label on that. So maybe we'll call this one food shelf services. You can also change the icon. And there are hundreds of icons. So you can really customize these to exactly what you want. It takes a little while to load them up. There they are. So it scrolls down and down. There's tons of them. We'll go with kind of a standard one here and use this service icon. And we'll hit save. And now, anytime we're on the Clients tab, whether our menu's collapsed or open, we'll have this Food Shelf Services favorite. And let's add one more. I'll walk you through that again. Go to Referrals. Let's star that to add it to Favorites. It'll pull up the same menu. And this time we'll just leave the label the same. We'll hit Save. So now we have Referrals and Food Shelf Services that we can access right off the menu. So if you're someone who works with, maybe you have 6 or 7 forms you work with regularly and you want to put all of them on your user favorites, your user favorites would start to get really long and clutter up your menu and make it not quite so pleasing to the eye and user friendly. What you can actually do is create folders to put all of your favorites into. So we'll right click on Food Shelf Services, go to Properties. Down here where it says Parent, we'll create a new container. And this one, let's just call it Food Shelf. And we'll highlight that as the new parent for Food Shelf Services and hit Save. And now our Food Shelf Services are nested under our Food Shelf folder. And let's do that again with Referrals. So we'll go right click on it and go to Properties and select Food Shelf as our parent folder and hit Save. So now we have a little Food Shelf folder. If we hover over it, we'll always have access to Food Shelf Services and Referrals. You can have as many folders as you want. So let's say we did Food Shelf and Employment. We could have a folder for each and all the different forms we work with there. We want to change the icon for our folder. We can also do that. Maybe we'll just use this folder icon here. We can hit Save. So it can really allow you to customize your menu for the work you do in your day-to-day work. You may have kind of a unique job where you're the only one who does these 3 things, and you can tailor the menu to really have the items you use every day and keep your user interface as clutter-free as possible. So that's about it for menus. The next thing I wanted to show you guys is workspaces. So you saw it briefly when I navigated to what was once the Clients tab. Workspace is always available. Workspace Carousel is always available by clicking up here. And you can see that we have workspaces that have the names of the tabs we used to have. So for all of the work groups, any place you had a tab before, there's now a workspace equivalent. To navigate through the carousel, you can click directly on the item you want to open. So if we go to the Home Workspace, click click on that, it'll take us to home. Providers, same thing. Go back to clients. So in addition to using your mouse, you can also click here to rotate through. Maybe you're in a work group that has, 10 tabs or had 10 tabs. This will help you navigate through those workspaces quickly. So in addition to using the mouse there's also some really slick keyboard shortcuts I'd like to show you. So the first one, and there's some help text here right on the workspace carousel, is Control Up arrow. No matter where you are, this will open up the carousel. You can then use the arrow keys to navigate through the different workspaces. So left arrow goes left, right arrow goes right. And this is a little easier to use, I found, than using the mouse to go everywhere. And then you can just hit enter to go to the workspace you want. So then if we hit Control Up arrow again, you'll notice that if I hit up and down arrow, I can actually go to these quick options, which are your workgroup favorites for that workgroup. And if we go to the Clients tab, we can actually jump right into a new client intake. And we'll cancel the workflow there. But I just wanted to demonstrate that you can jump to those forms. So one of the advantages of using these quick options is that you can bypass loading the work group and the dashboard and going into the menus, so it can save you some clicks. Another nice feature of the Workspace carousel is it'll tell you a little bit about the entity that you have selected. So in the client's workspace, the entity is always a client, so you can see a picture of that client, their name, client ID number, and date of birth. So it can kind of tell you what you're going to get to before you get there. So that's kind of a nice feature. All right, then after that, there's just a couple of other minor changes that I wanted to show you. First one, and you may have seen it briefly, is that workflows look a little bit different. So if we hit Add New Client, you'll see there's now a bar that shows up just to the right of the menu that'll tell you the name of the workflow you're in and the different steps in there. Pausing and canceling the workflow work exactly the same as they have in the past. And in this case, we're going to go ahead and cancel the workflow. Very minor change, but just something I wanted to point out. Another feature that is really handy is results pagination. So in previous versions of ClientTrack, if you were trying to load more than 200 records, so let's say you had a client who's been with your organization for years and has hundreds of different services they received. If you loaded up the services form, it would restrict the number of results you saw to 200. ClientTrack 15 put in a feature that's really nice called results pagination, and I'm sure you've seen this on other websites. Now, if there's more than 200 results, you can page to see other pages of it. So it still restricts it to 200 per page, but you can now see the other ones. So I just did a client search, and if we hit next, we'll see the next 200 results. Last would take us to the last 200 results in the data. We can go to the first, previous, and see all the different results. So a nice tool, is a minor feature, but one that we've been asking for a long time, and it's nice they put it in. The last new feature that I wanted to show you guys is the global search. We still have some customization to do with the global search, just to let you know before I show it to you. And we'll be officially rolling it out in Q1 of 2016, but there's one aspect of it that I think is really helpful to know. So global search allows you to search for information across workspaces and within menus. So just to show you a quick test, if we were to type in John and hit search, it'll show us results of John across the Client tab and the Provider tab. The one thing that's making this less useful right now and that we need to customize is that it's not currently searching for first name. So you'll see all these Johnsons, but no John first name. And you'll also notice in providers that it'll pull up anybody named John in the provider tab. So that's pretty handy. The part that, so it's pretty basic right now. We got to do some work before it's super useful. But the feature I wanted to show you is that you can search menus for forms. So if we type in service, hit enter, it will pull up all of the different forms that have service in the name. So all the different menu options. It pulls in workflows, folders, single forms across both the clients tab, home tab, provider tab, anywhere where there's a form or work or menu option that has the word service in it, it'll find it. It even pulled in clients there. We got some test data here where we tested someone named service. And if you click on this, so let's say we want to go straight to quick services, you can jump straight to that form. So this can be a quick way to get around, especially if you're not sure where what you're looking for lives in the database. One other thing I would like to note, I did show you one shortcut before, keyboard shortcut. It's up top in the top right under Help. You can go to Keyboard Shortcuts and see a complete list of all keyboard shortcuts in ClientTrack 15. So for those of you who really like shortcuts, it can be pretty handy. There's some cool ones in there. And that's about all for our presentation today. Thank you for watching our video. And if you have any questions, please direct them to your agency administrator. And for you agency administrators out there, if you have any questions, feel free to direct those to any MAC staff. Thank you.